Now, the Republican Party, I talked at some length about the Democratic Party. I also want to talk about the Republican Party. I'm quite concerned about this. And I think you should be too. It's really easy to sit around and be gleeful. And an hour from now, by the way, we're going to talk to Scotty Nell Hughes, who has been she's a conservative person who does, media. She's the author of a book called Roar, The New Conservative Woman Speaks Out. She's, I've debated Scotty on my TV program where I, debate conservatives 3 nights a week. I've debated her, dozens of times over the last 5 years and know her pretty well. And has become one of the more visible Trump surrogates. So I'm looking forward to this conversation an hour from now with Scotty about, why Trump and all that kind of stuff. But Trump is getting all the attention. What is not getting the attention, and this is what I wanted to talk about this hour, although I realize that, the last hour is still ringing in a lot of people's heads, and I've got people in Florida, New York, Wisconsin, Canada, Ohio, Massachusetts, California, Florida, and California on the line who want to comment on what we were talking about in the last hour. We'll get to that in just a minute. But we've got a serious problem here in the United States with the Republican Party, which is the wholly owned subsidiary of basically, the Walton family and the Koch brothers. We've got a Republican Party that's the wholly owned subsidiary of some of the dirtiest industries in the country, some of the largest polluters in the country, that denies that global warming exists. You've got a Republican Party that a couple of times a year gets together in these rooms in this group called this thing put together by the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, where state Republican legislators sit 50-50 with lobbyists and vote on whether or not to take back to their states and introduce legislation that has been written by the lobbyists and is brought to these ALEC meetings. You've got a Republican Party that is arguably more corrupt than it has been at any time in its history, except, I would say, the mid to late 19th century, the mid to late 1800s. Where the Republican Party went from being the party of Lincoln, which Paul Ryan this morning, we're the party of Lincoln. No, you're not. Abraham Lincoln would look at today's Republican Party, or for that matter, at the Republican Party from any point from, say, 1880 forward, and spit them out of his mouth, to paraphrase the Bible. Lincoln would have nothing to do with today's Republican Party. But they're running around saying we're the party of Lincoln, and they've got all these folks with these, and this is why Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. Because there are people watching Fox News, there are people listening to right-wing hate radio, there are people who are, and who are, okay, this is it, I'm a Republican, and they don't realize that they're being conned by and large. It's whatever their particular grievance of the week may be, or maybe the grievance of their lifetime may be. That grievance is going to be stoked by the Republicans in order to get their votes, so that those Republicans then, once in office, can help the top 1%. It all boils down to that. Oh, your grievance is that you're a white male and the good jobs are gone? Well, it must be those brown people from Mexico who took them. And if it wasn't them, it must have been some, bad politicians, presumably Democrats. But the fact of, where I started with this rant is that the reason that Donald Trump is the nominee, in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, but I think I'm right. The reason he's the nominee is because he kept taking positions that were counter, that were outside the quote mainstream of the Republican Party. He said rich people should pay higher taxes. Now, he said that, and all these, kind of Reagan Democrats, whatever you want to call them, all these Republican voters thought he meant it, and they still do, most of them. But then when he introduced his tax proposal, of course, it had the obligatory Republican tax cut for billionaires in it. Tax cut for everybody except the bottom 70% or so, who are going to see their taxes go up. Donald Trump campaigned as, an opponent of TPP. Well, the Republican Party is championing, along with President Obama, tragically, but the Republican Party is championing the TPP and all these trade deals. I mean, this was Nixon's idea, to get around the constitutional requirement that treaties be approved by 2/3 of the Senate, which is a damn high bar, by calling them trade agreements. And then you stuff all kinds of crap into them that really should be in treaties, because they do become the law of the land. And so Donald Trump came out and said, I'm opposed to that. Well, he's no longer opposed to them. Now he's just going to make them better. This is what Barack Obama told us in 2008, that the first thing he would do as president is call together the presidents of Mexico and Canada and renegotiate NAFTA. And then he kind of became in favor of the trade deals. Well, this is, but see, in the case of President Obama, that transition took 7 years. In the case of Donald Trump, it took a week. Donald Trump, and he keeps saying things that appeal to, destroy Obamacare. No, we'll change it, but people should have health care. Really? Social Security. Paul Ryan wants to cut Social Security. He's committed his career to destroying Social Security and Medicare. It's the mantra of the Republican Party. George W. Bush thought he could do it in 2004 because he had so much political capital from that war in Iraq that he won. Mission Impossible, or Mission Accomplished, excuse me. So, anyhow, the net of all this is that we have a Republican Party right now in which it is impossible for Republicans to get elected if they honestly tell the truth about their positions. That party is now theoretically being led, and after the convention, if Donald Trump is the nominee, will be led by a man who got to that position by asserting either Democratic or even more progressive than conventional Democratic positions. And then once he got the votes, once he got elected, walking away from them. Because the Republican Party at the end of the day will not tolerate that, right? So my question for this hour is, how do we help the Republicans? Republicans of goodwill, there are some out there. My friend Scott, who's one of my neighbors, he talks about how, I'm an Eisenhower Republican. And then proceeds to agree with me on virtually all the major issues of the day. Because, hey, Eisenhower would have. How do we help the Eisenhower Republicans take back the Republican Party too? Because that's part of our republic. These are our friends and neighbors and coworkers. And they've been duped. How do we push through that? How do we break through that? How do we wake them up? How do we get it past the fog created by the Fox so-called news machine and right-wing hate radio? How do we get past that? I think we do it with information. I think we do it by calling folks out. I think we do it by informing people. If you have a better suggestion, I'd love to hear it.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.